Okay, welcome back to NerdVine, where we love wine, diversity, inclusivity, self-care, and today we're going to talk about another one of our loves, food. So, a lot of people know some vague concepts, like you want to do red meat with red wine and white meat with white wine, same red sauce with red wine, red meats with red wine. My camera is usually up here, and now it's down here because I'm using my computer, so forgive me if I look like I'm staring off into space. Hi, Amos. Okay, anyway, so those are all generally good concepts, and super helpful if you are having any of those things. But then, like, let's say you're having mac and cheese, or you want something to go with, like, a party, and you're going to set up a buffet table so you have lots of options. Or what if I'm vegan and I really want red wine? Obviously, I'm not going to be eating red meat with it. What if I hate red wine, but I, like, really want a nice, marbled steak? What if I'm light on money and I'm going to spend all my money on the wine, so now I'm going to have ramen? Like, what do I eat? What do I drink with my ramen? Listen, I could go on with the scenarios, but I think the whole point is, well, you get the idea, basically. So we're going to get a little bit nerdy and delve into some ideas for food and wine science. It's largely based in chemistry, but don't turn off the video. Stay with me. I definitely almost failed high school chemistry, so I will keep it, as always, in everyday, everyone kind of terms. There's also no real good place to start, so we're just going to start. Wow, it's actually kind of like good life advice. If there's no good place to start, just start. So let's do it. All right. Now I have to figure out. Can I make myself a little circle? Ooh, that's a big circle. Make myself a littler circle. Oops, I'm big again. Okay, I can do this. All right. So food and wine pairing. Oh my gosh, what's happening? Food and wine pairing from cab and steak to champagne and potato chips. So envision way back before trains, planes, and automobiles. You're in Europe. Roll with me here. And you aren't going to be importing much in the way of your wine or food. Most of it's going to be locally grown. So everything that you're eating and drinking is all coming locally. And subsequently, that's a really good cheat. So, if you are having Italian wine, it's going to go well with Italian food. Conversely, if you really love French food, try to look for French wines. So this doesn't really solve the red versus white debate. That you want to do that as well as this, but it can definitely narrow down your choices. So I want some Malbec, which is primarily grown in Argentina, so I'm going to stick with beef or ribs or sausages that I've grilled or barbecued, because asado is, I probably said that wrong, asado. Anyway, it's a traditional social gathering, but it's also a method of barbecuing. Maybe you're having pasta with vodka sauce, so you might want a good Chianti to pair with that meal. Which, by the way, when I was researching stuff for this video, I tried to look up if vodka sauce was Italian or American, and let me tell you, that is a heated debate. I put a link in the video description that has to do with that. Definitely check it out. The gist is, you want to pair traditional foods with traditional wines. It'll generally be a safe bet. Now, chemistry, don't be overwhelmed. So on this side of the screen is the tannin, and on that side of the screen is monounsaturated fatty acid, which is the the healthy kind of fats that you maybe want to include in your diet. So tannins love fat, and fat loves tannin. So as we discussed in the first vocab video, tannins will naturally dry out your mouth. So it actually makes a lot of sense to pair that with a fatty dish. This imparts some level of moisture to your mouth. Where was I going with this? Well, anyway, that's why marbled steaks always pair nicely with the tannic cap. But if you aren't a meat eater, or you just don't want steak, maybe you're just looking for a snack to have with your super tannic wines, try pecans. So the fat will pair nicely with the tannins, and as a bonus, the complex bittersweet of the nuts, flesh, and skin. Also, I forgot to go forward on the slides. The bitterness will emphasize the fruits in your cap. So these are some super tannic wines. I just noticed how funny Tanat is tannic. Anyway, that is, I think, one of the most tannic wines, followed by Sagrantino, and then the rest of them are very tannic wines. And here are some fatty foods that can go nicely with any combination of those wines. I threw in some pictures. Okay, so in a similarly rhythmic kind of saying, acid loves salt and salt loves acid. So this helps explain why your seafood dishes go so well with high acid wines like Sauvignon Blanc, Vino Verde. Actually, they're kind of listed here. Maybe you don't like fish. I secretly don't actually really love fish. Or maybe you're allergic to seafood and shellfish. So you can look for other salty foods like pretzels, salty cheeses like Parmesan or bleu cheese. This is also why champagne and chips is such an excellent pairing. And if I haven't already harped on champagne and chips, it's so great. The acid in the champagne complements the saltiness of the chips and vice versa. And honestly, as a bonus, the price of the chips complements the price of the champagne. So that's kind of like a little bit on what to do. And then let's also talk about what not to do. So we're going to talk about the different kinds of foods and their characteristics. Amos is sniffing the computer like he's never seen it before. What types of foods and how they will increase or decrease certain characteristics of your wine. Always keep in mind your wine will be more affected by your food than your food by your wine. And what I don't want is for you to think that maybe you really don't like a bottle of wine that it turns out you really would like just because you maybe had it with the wrong food. So in no particular order, let's talk about some general guidelines. So spicy food. I love spicy food. Not necessarily like turn red and start pouring sweat kind of spice. Just like a little ghost pepper salt on an avocado or like a little eyebrow perspiration level of sweat. It can be tricky though to pair spice with your foods because the spiciness in the food will increase the burn of the alcohol. So like your high alcohol wines like a Zinfandel that can hit 15.9 is going to burn even more. So on the plus side, it also does decrease some of the sweetness in the fruit. So like if someone has gifted you a demi-sec or like an Auslese and you really want to cut down on that, this is a great time to do that. Similarly, if you have a Moscato or even a dessert wine and you tried it and you're like, this is a little much, give it a shot with some spicy food because it can temper those characteristics a little bit and render those a little more neutral. Moving on to acidic food, I think, if I'm clicking correctly, there we go. We talked about acidic wines, but foods can also be acidic. So salads that might involve some like citrus slices or vinaigrettes, balsamic vinegar. Maybe you want something with soy sauce, which category I'm leaving purposely vague because I swear I put soy sauce on like really random things and kind of everything. That's also fairly acidic. And actually, shockingly so is mayo, which I can't use because I used it in a project when I was a kid and I'm completely digressing there, but that's technically acidic. If you want German food and you're like, sauerkrauts and pickles and that, those are all acidic foods. The point is the acidic food will decrease the wine's acidity and bitterness. So this is a great time to bust out any wines that you might have tried and you thought, these were like a little, I'm puckering a little too much, I'm salivating a little too much. You can use the acidic foods to kind of like temper that. It will increase the fruit and the sweetness. So that can also be nice. Honestly, just mix and match kind of some of your acidic wines and your acidic foods. And am I just giving you another excuse to try new food and wine? Yes, obviously, I definitely am. All right. Acid loves salt. Salt loves acid. We kind of talked about that, but let's revisit the salty foods real quick. They decrease acidity and bitterness, as discussed, and they can increase the perception of the fruitiness. So French fries and a cooler climate Pinot Noir are going to be a nice complement. The cooler climate Pinots have a little less fruit than your warm climate Pinots, which can actually get like a really fruit forward and even kind of jammy. And these cooler climate Pinots are also usually a little bit lighter in the body. So the French fries will give both of those a boost. Bitter foods. I understand that coffee for many of us is its own food group and we need at least one serving a day. But I'm actually talking about foods here. If you want to pair your coffee and wine, though, this will also apply. So I'm going to list some foods that people stereotypically do not like. I just want you to consider that maybe they could just use a little help from the wine. I don't mean getting too drunk to notice that you don't like them. If that happens, also fine. But what I mean is the complementary flavors. So things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, spinach, all those little like vitamin powerhouses that also have something called glucosinolate. I might be pronouncing that wrong. Glucosinolate. It makes them taste bitter, and that is even more pronounced if you're a super taster. I'll add super tasters to the ever-growing list of things I need to cover in these videos. But the nice thing is the bitter fruits kind of decrease a wine's sweetness and increase a little bit of the bitterness. So for that reason, they're great with the warmer climate Pinots that I kind of talked about. That sweet, jammy fruit, if you aren't a fan of that, you can cut it down with some of these bitter foods. Maybe even a warm climate Chardonnay, a sweeter Riesling. You could start, I mean, honestly, I would start at a Spätlese because that's getting pretty sweet, but you could start at an Auslese and go all the way to like a Beerenschlese. These words will be on the label, and you could probably ask your local wine store person for some help. I will also include them in the video description. They are just classifications of like when the grapes were picked, and they help you determine the sweetness of your Rieslings. Okay, you guys are doing great. Just hang in there. We've got sweet and umami foods to cover. So, like salty and acidic foods, sweet and umami foods will cause decreases in the wine's fruitiness and sweetness while increasing the bitterness and the acidity. Is it not showing up? There we go. And a little bit of the burn. So, the umami foods are things like sun-dried tomatoes, dried shiitake, seaweed, cured meats, and of course for sweet things, sweet things that are sweet. It can feel counterintuitive. I'll come back to that. It can feel counterintuitive to pair your sweet foods with a sweet wine, but it actually can help like temper an overly sweet wine. So if you really wish you liked port, but it's just too sweet, it can bring the sweetness down a notch. If you're looking to have like some nice rich cake, try some of those Rieslings that I mentioned or the fortified wines. Now, the part where it gets a little bit tricky is that once you add things in besides pure sweetness, so think like gummy bears or just pure sweet, once you start getting into like a lemon cake, because it's a little bit tangier, I might actually pair that with like a fruit-forward Sauvignon Blanc, mixing fat into the equation. So ice cream, you could maybe start playing around a little, but if you're just like on a straight sugar thing, you can do some of those sweeter wines. Okay, this was a lot. I definitely derailed myself a whole bunch. I'm definitely going to need to go back and maybe edit a little bit. But the point is, I've included some notes in the video description if you want to copy them down. And in the meantime, in addition to liking and subscribing, because I could have made myself bigger for this, but in the meantime, in addition to liking and subscribing, please comment below with your favorite wine and food pairing, or if you're stumped on what wine to be having with a particular dish that you want to have, comment the dish below and I will make some wine recommendations for you. If you have a wine and you need some food recommendations, also comment that below and then let me know any dietary restrictions or allergies or preferences that you have, and I'll try to come up with some foods. I want to thank all of the photographers on Unsplash for providing the photographs that I used in this little slideshow. And in the end, eat what you love, no matter how simple or fancy it is. Eat what you love, drink what you love. The whole idea is just that you can kind of make what you love even more lovable by pairing it with the right things. And if you're just dying to know about the mac and cheese, I would really recommend an unoaked Chardonnay, so especially French if you want to be fancy, or you could even mix it up with a Chenin Blanc. So, happy eating. I hope you managed to make it through this. This is the first one with a slideshow, but hopefully we'll do some more and I will get a little less chaotic with them. I'll see you next time.